Prepping versus homesteading. I think that's a natural evolution for preppers. What is homesteading, number one? Well, it's being as self-sufficient as possible. Checking the fire there. Where to the point where, think like the Amish. I think those are the only people right now that really kind of got the idea right, that the more self-sufficient you are, the less affected you are about world events and stuff like that, so to speak. Unless something catastrophic, natural disaster or something like that hits you. But for the most part, when you look at that whole point of self-sufficiency, it's like the security is in the knowledge of what you know. And it's also the idea that the more you know, the less you need. But it's also the idea that you could spread that knowledge to the people around you, to your community, so that they might start taking on that lifestyle. I think more and more people are going to get that, and more people are going to do that. Now, the hordes and the masses usually are so self-absorbed that they, I got my life is too much of a rush. I can't slow down for anything. Well, sometimes you got to take your time at this stuff. Homesteading is not easy because it's hard work. Now, am I what you would call a homesteader? Not necessarily, because they still rely on the store, for groceries. Pretty much you might as well say almost 100%. Stuff like that. Do I garden and stuff? I do stuff like that. My goal is to become more self-reliant, so I don't have to run to the grocery store or whatever. Now, would you call me a prepper? I would say yes. I'm a marginal prepper. Like I would never make it onto Doomsday preppers. I'm not impressive enough for that. But I do have knowledge and skills in hunting and trapping and other things like that do allow me to be, the stepping stones to self-reliance. The thing is that where prepping is, why it's a place to start is, this is what typically happens to people. The world is fine, the world is great. Hey, Buzz, maybe something isn't right. Maybe I'll research in case of disasters. And people just love watching shows on disasters and stuff like that. And then they say, oh my God, I need 10,000 meals. I need this, I need that. I need and they just go overboard and they spend all kinds of money on stuff that they don't need to really be spending the money on. Should you have a storage of food for you and everybody in your family for, a year's time? Yes, you should. How much food is that really in actual bulk and cost? Not as much as you would think. But why a year, maybe 2 years, 3 years even? Well, why you'd want to start with that is because that's probably the amount of time it's going to take you to become self-reliant. And the big thing for self-reliance is food. Food is the number one. Food will always be the number one. Shelter and stuff like that, sure, but maybe you get kicked out of your home, but if you have a Doomsday garden somewhere, you don't have to move in. If you know how to strategically plant things, that's why if you can plant things that come back every year, grapevines and stuff like that, it's stuff that you could use. But with the ideas of permaculture and aquaponics, hydroponics, you look into those because and recycling seeds and stuff like that. Basically, anything the Amish kind of do, they don't use the aquaponics and hydroponics because they don't use power, but or is it the Hutterites? I can't remember which one of them. It's either the Amish or the Hutterites. One can use power, for sustaining the village. The other can't use anything. I can't remember which. But anyway, with today's technology, you can make things work. But the reason why I say that is because back in the 1800s, people lived. They lived. Everybody ate. Nobody was obese because he never ate. The foods didn't have the stuff in it, but people were well fed. Growing up here, we had pigs, we had chickens and turkeys and stuff like that, and it was all work, And I'm thinking of getting some again this year, maybe some turkeys, because cost per unit. It's the idea that you can have it and live off of it and stuff like that. But it's to the point where is it cheaper to raise the stuff or not? The cost of feed is getting to the point where you cannot raise chickens cheaper than you can buy it off the shelf. But it doesn't mean that the chicken on the shelf is cheaper. It just means you can't. The feed is more expensive, and meat prices will go up. They will go down. There's a lot of things to factor in there. So one of the best things you could ever really have is like a trout pond or something. You can have enough trout in there to feed yourself for years. Problem with trout ponds is raccoons and otters. Yeah, one of my bosses has a trout pond, and I remember one day I couldn't count the amount of fish that were in there. By the end of the year, well, you see all like the little like chewed up skulls and stuff on the fish skulls on the shore. It's like, oh yeah, there's like 3 fish left in there. And at one point I didn't see any, so I was like, yeah, I know what happened to them. But fishing is probably one of the most successful wild game you can get. But it's not a guarantee. I mean, it depends where you go. I mean, there's sometimes you'll go fishing for a month straight and not catch anything. It's just, it is the way it is. Like around here, like, I mean, it's all fished out pretty much. You know what I mean? Like you catch the odd pike, but you know, it's just it's not there. So you can't rely on hunting. You can't rely on fishing or trapping. But it's a supplement. You know. But farming is much more, you know, lucrative. It's much more manageable. But it requires work. Most people work too many hours to be able to take care of a farm. That's why gardens are a little bit more of a better idea, because you know, you put an hour, 2 hours of work a day into your garden. You know, you put 3 or 4 hours of work a day into your garden, you'll get a lot. But you put like an hour a week into your garden, you'll get something. That's kind of more of where I'm at, you know. Try to, you know, but if you do set things up to be maximized, I mean, there's no reason why you can't become self-reliant with the food. And that's going to be the driving cost to put people in the poorhouse in the near future is food. It already is. It's just, you see it over there before you see it over here. Like 2011 to now has been just devastating for people overseas, you know, in the third world countries. I mean, they're getting like a 40% hike in food prices just about every year. They spend about 80 to 90% of their income just on food. Now, mind you, it's not hard to do when you make next to nothing. And over there, and a friend of mine brought this up. He goes, yeah, he says, yeah, they only make $1 or maybe 50 cents a day, but their cost of living isn't thousands of dollars a month. You know what I mean? Many of these people don't have any rent to pay or anything like that, so they don't make any money, but they don't, you know, their cost of living isn't like here, because, you know, it's not set up like that over there, you know. They live in caves, they live wherever. But I'm not saying they're living well, it's just that I'm saying that, you know, over here, it's a different setup. So over here, you know, if you don't have money, you virtually cannot participate in society, you know what I mean? It's literally like that. It's almost impossible to live outside the society without money, because you have to be self-reliant, you know. And that's the problem with the laws that we have. Is it's designed to keep people enslaved to it. So the only way to get away from that is through self-sufficiency. Now, you'll always have to, you know, until things change, which they probably won't for God knows how long, unless something drastic happens, which a financial collapse could bring on something like this. But I could see a financial collapse because the people are so dumbed down in the masses that we're more likely to get a more tyranny rather than people say, maybe we should be, because nobody wants to do the hard work, right? And it's like, well, we'll just get government to do it for us. Okay, but these are the terms. You're going to give up this, you're going to give up that, you're going to give up more of your income, prices are going to go up. Rather than say, okay, well, don't ask, you know, we'll leave you alone, but just don't ask us for anything. But we don't teach kids self-sufficiency. We teach them entitlement, and we've been doing it for decades. You know, probably starting with my generation, maybe the generation before. Mostly my generation on, and the generation after mine definitely has been taught. All they know is entitlement, and everything is a right. You know, I have a right to a cell phone. I have a right to a brand new car. I have you know, and it is that petty. You know, not everybody's like that. But when you start seeing the things that they demand, it becomes apparent that you know, they're demanding things that you know, like even the right to eat. Everybody has the right to eat, but it doesn't guarantee somebody else is going to provide you with food. You see what I'm saying? So really, it's something I brought up before. Most things are privileges. If you have to earn it yourself, it's a privilege. You know, it's you know, and if you're relying on somebody else to provide it for you, it's a privilege. So you see how self-reliance is definitely a benefit that can be paid forward if more people are self-reliant than dependent. And that's the whole point of homesteading, is to become more self-reliant. So the people you should learn off on the low-tech side is people like the Amish. You know, get some books from the 1800s, buckskinners, you know, frontiersmen. I have a book called Back to Basics. You know, people used to store food. How did they do it? They used beeswax and canning and stuff like that. And all that stuff, it might not be as good as the technology today, but it was low-tech and worked no matter what. So, you know, and preservation of food is probably the key so that you can build up a storage. My goal this year is to maximize my gardening as much as possible, so that I have, you know, tons of. I want a couple of 5-gallon pails full of just like dried beans, you know, stuff like that. Why? Because that'll last like a family of 5, or in my case, you know, if I add up all my relatives or everything, it would get us all through at least a year. You'd have to ration it per day, but at least people would get the proper nutrition per day. And I'm not a nutrition expert or anything like that, but there are things that you can do. But the thing is food is security, so that's the first place where you're going to start. The other things like energy efficiency. For example, it's like minus 28 right now. The sun is barely shining. It shined yesterday. I've only seen sun 3 times, 4 times in the past month. You know what I mean? Other than that, it's been pretty much overcast the whole time. That's a typical Canadian winter. Solar isn't really going to work very well up here. Neither will wind, because in the wintertime, sometimes you do get good wind, but most of the time you don't. So you'll need other means. So that's why you have to kind of combine things. So if you want to go in solar and wind, every place that's the solution to our energy problems lives in a southern climate. You know, these people can get this sunshine all year round, so to speak, and it works well. It's a good supplement. It's always easier to conserve than it is to produce, but people want to live the lifestyles that they live now without, you know, they want to be able to turn the light on and forget about it. And the old saying for hydro goes, or power and energy, is you can't get something for nothing. So you'll have to, you know, to produce energy, there's a lot of great things you can do, but there's not a lot of things you can do cheaply. That's the thing, like solar power. Okay, well, you just need to increase your battery bank storage. Sure, but batteries are expensive, you know. You know, if you've already built the place, it's very hard to convert to, you know, I mean, to get a place completely self-sufficient, you're talking $8,000 to $20,000 of stuff. You know, again, this is stuff that, you know, amps, volts, and wattage. You know, I'm pretty familiar with that stuff, and I got to tell you, like, it's, you know, at the end of the day, you really have to ask yourself, well, what do you want to run? You know, I like the idea of natural gas for a lot of things, but even that costs a lot of money. The thing about natural gas is it gives you the advantage of whenever there's power outages, you can still have heat, you can still have cooking, you can whatever. So I do like that, but gas prices fluctuate probably even more than hydro does. So it's a tough one. You know, it is a very tough one. The cheapest thing you could do, like an old house like this, I mean, this house is built, I think these folks started building it in '76. I mean, it's not insulated as well as it should be. Insulation will get you much further than anything else. Why? Because, like, you know, there's the wood that I burn. You know, we burn probably about 14 quart a year is what we burn. Now, if this house was, like, you know, had state-of-the-art insulation in it, you know, we'd probably burn 6 or 7. You know, so that's how you know. You can do things like that. So if you're just starting out, like when I build my house, it's going to be, I'm going to build it as if it was going to be in the Arctic. You know, like the walls are going to be 3 feet thick. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's. For example, one place I work, it's a garage, an open garage. The ceiling's probably about 25 feet tall. It's 40 by 50, something like that. And one little 4,800 watt heater heats that whole thing. Why? Because the insulation is literally the size of this log. It's the wall, like it's that heavy yellow foam, not foam, but heavy. It's industrial grade insulation, right? You can heat the place with a candle, you know. So if you know you're building a home, you got to maybe design something like that. No, of course there's building codes and stuff like that, but that's where you would start, you know, if you're starting from scratch, and then you could integrate your, you know, your solar panel roof. I mean, you get roof panel, like roof tin, so to speak, roofing tin, that is basically not as good as a regular solar panel, but you can plug it in and get extra. It's very innovative, this stuff that's coming out. But the problem is that the stuff that's out there is not competitively priced enough to get your money back quickly. However, because I do know some people that are off the grid, so to speak, and they like it until they got a plasma TV, and then it's like, you know, they get like 2 hours and the inverter is almost on fire because it's overheating. They just cannot, like, it just drains things so fast. So the appliances you use, I don't watch a lot of TV, so TV's not a big thing for me, but I need something to run my laptop. I need something to charge up my cameras. Battery charging, sometimes that's a difficult one, you know. So you can see how homesteading can be difficult. The more complex you want, you know, the more modernized you want to live, the harder it is to do that. But it's not impossible. So I did a thing on power inverters and stuff like that, and I have a bunch of power inverters. I haven't really hooked them up in a while, and I'm going to do that. because I was going to renovate my trailer for that to have it be self-sufficient, but I was like, I don't know, I'll save it for something else because I might sell off the trailer. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But anyway, I have the stuff ready to go. I need to get a windmill generator. I'm going to experiment with all that, and that's stuff you could start on and build on. But again, it depends what you need. You know, if you're relying on electric heat, you don't want to use an inverter. You'll never have enough battery storage. But if you were to spend as much as you spend on a hydro bill every month on a typical house, then you could see how going green, so to speak, which is not really going green. A lot of people don't understand what going green is. Going green is basically getting away from the technology. Batteries, even if you can recycle them, are still, you know, it's still toxic, right? The plastics, the solar panels, that's all stuff that even, you know, you go to recycle. And solar panels do wear out. But sometimes you get good deals on them and stuff like that. So it's just stuff to consider. So homesteading is something that takes a long time to work. Prepping is kind of like what you do before you try to get into the homesteading. So maybe I babbled a bit on this. Hopefully it made a lot of sense. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But if you're a prepper, you really want to move towards homesteading because you're going to be more cost effective when you're sustainable than trying to acquire and accumulate. Because again, if you have like the means of aquaponics and hydroponics to make food, again, is the number one. Everything else after there is just luxury to me. But if you have a way of basically growing tomatoes in outer space in your own home, you know, then you will have that self-sufficiency. You won't have to worry as much. So I would focus on the gardening aspect, maybe poultry, maybe raise rabbits, whatever, fish, those things, easy things like that. If you don't have a place for cows and stuff like that, but it, you know, again, it's also like homesteading's fine if you don't have anything else to do but homesteading. So depending on how you make your money, you know, that's it's your job that really keeps you away from doing stuff like that. So if you work part-time, it's not so bad, but you know, like for right now, it's winter time and there's no projects I can really do outside because it's like minus, you know, it's minus 20, almost minus 30, minus 29, minus 30. So there's nothing I can do outside. And as soon as it's nice enough to do stuff outside, I'm out working for other people, so I don't get the chance to. So you really have to plan long term, but you really have to look at it more from the stance of homesteading is going to be the idea of self-sufficiency. You might want to get some books on it. Do as much research before you get into it because you could spend an awful lot. Same with prepping. A lot of people spend a lot of money they don't need to spend. There's a lot of stuff you already have lying around your home that you can use. And you need to break it down into categories. Maybe I'll do that in the next video. Okay, hi and welcome. Prepping versus homesteading. I think that's a natural evolution for preppers. What is homesteading, number one? Well, it's being as self-sufficient as possible. Just checking the fire there. Where to the point where, you know, think like the Amish. You know, I think those are the only people right now that really kind of got the idea right. That the more self-sufficient you are, you know, the less affected you are about world events and stuff like that, so to speak. Unless something catastrophic, like, you know, natural disaster or something like that hits you. But for the most part, when you look at that whole point of self-sufficiency, it's like the security is in the knowledge of what you know, and it's also the idea that the more you know, the less you need. But it's also the idea that you could spread that knowledge to the people around you, to your community, so that they might start taking on that lifestyle. I think more and more people are going to get that, and more people are going to do that. Now, the hordes and the masses usually are so self-absorbed that they, you know, my life is too much of a rush. I can't slow down for anything. Well, sometimes you got to take your time at this stuff. Homesteading is not easy because it's hard work. Now, am I what you would call a homesteader? Not necessarily, because I mean, I still rely on the store, you know, for groceries. You know, pretty much you might as well say almost 100%. You know, stuff like that. Do I garden and stuff like that? I do stuff like that. My goal is to become more self-reliant so I don't have to run to the grocery store or whatever. Now, would you call me a prepper? I would say yes, I'm a marginal prepper. Like, you know, I would never make it onto Doomsday preppers. I'm not impressive enough for that. But I do have knowledge and skills in hunting and trapping and other things like that that do allow me to be, you know, the stepping stones to self-reliance. You know, the thing is that where prepping is, why it's the place to start is, this is what typically happens to people. The world is fine, the world is great. Hey, maybe something isn't right. Maybe I'll research in case of disasters. And people just love watching shows on disasters and stuff like that. And then they say, oh my God, I need 10,000 meals. I need this, I need that. I need, and they just go overboard and they spend all kinds of money on stuff that they don't need to really be spending the money on. Should you have a storage of food for you and everybody in your family for, a year's time? Yes, you should. How much food is that really in actual bulk and cost? Not as much as you would think.